Hey, welcome back. So in our last lesson, we got Hazel here. We imported the sprites as costumes. We run this simple code to get Hazel actually running, and she looks great. But what we want to do now is actually get Hazel moving with that action. So we're going to bring in some motion. So what we're going to do here is actually start to look at some code that we can blend in with this. And there's going to be lots of experimenting, guys. There's going to be lots of, oh, does this work? Let's test it. So what we're going to do is bring in a background. Bottom right-hand corner, there's what we call stages. So we're going to bring in a stage, and I'm just going to bring in a grid. Now we can change this later. We can make it a lot more fun looking, but we're going to bring in the grid because I just like it. It shows how far Hazel's actually moving. And that's just a great way of getting kids to say, okay, if I put in this code, this is how far Hazel's actually moved, and we can kind of move her up and down a little bit. I don't need precise aspects of it yet, but what I am going to do is I'm going to bring in some code, and I'm not going to connect it to my when green flag is clicked, but I'm going to bring in some code that gets Hazel back to her starting position. So if I drag over, you'll see in the blue code there's a little code that says go to X and Y. And what that actually has is the actual points that she is at the moment. So I'm actually going to drag that across, and I'm not going to actually connect it to the code because I don't actually want it running in the code. But if I move Hazel and then I tap on that code, you can see that she moves back. So it's just a really great way of getting Hazel back to the starting point as I'm running. So I've got Hazel running. But if I hit on that blue code that I dragged across, she goes back to that spot. So it's just kind of going back to the start aspect of it. But what I want to do is I want to bring in some move steps. So at the top of motion, it says move steps. And I want to bring that into my code. So at the top there, you can see it says move 10 steps. And if I drag that into my code and I press my green flag, I can start to look at how she's actually moving. And this is just a great way of experimenting, seeing which code, changing the move steps, changing the position of the move 2 steps to get her to a stage where I'm happy with the movement that she's actually doing. So if I hit the green flag each time here, you can kind of see that I'm starting to get more control over the positioning of Hazel and how she's actually moving. And from this point on, it's just experimenting, changing how far she's moving between each costume and actually changes. I might find that I actually explore some other code entirely and actually think maybe I don't put it in the loop, maybe I put it at the end as she's running or at the start in the code. But I really would encourage all the students and teachers that are looking at this tutorial to start exploring and experimenting and kind of putting some code in and changing and modifying, testing it and say, is that how I actually want it? Because often it's not the first thing that I do that is actually how it's going to finish off. So encourage that risk-taking and that put in, what will this do? What will this do? Changing it back is a great kind of mindset of learning with our coding for the very, very first time. And I can change the backgrounds and I can do some range of different things, but you can see there I'm starting to get to a stage where I'm happy with it.